John Couvillon with JMC Analytics is back with us, and we're going to talk about the special session that just ended, and we'll have some conversation about the regular session that's on the way. But just had a conversation with Congressman Graves. I referenced Super Tuesday having gone by. What are your thoughts on the results of that? Pretty predictable, but what are your thoughts?
So number one, it was a slam dunk for Donald Trump. Number two, one of the things that genuinely puzzled me was Nikki Haley basically trying to adopt a strategy of basically what I would call getting the liberal Republican vote. Literally the only place where I saw she had any appreciable strength would be in college towns and or suburban areas in Northern Virginia. In other words, places Donald Trump is extremely unlikely to carry. And that was really her sole strength. The other thing that was interesting too is there was a lot more Republican enthusiasm than there was for the Democrats.
Yeah, well, I mean, are we supposed to really pretend that she had a shot at hell?
No, but I think it's a case.
I'm just,
She did not have a shot. However, if she was going to try to hang in as long as she did, for her to abruptly cut loose on Super Tuesday, to me, she should have at least carried on a few more weeks because, of course, she would have had possibly more favorable territory, say in Ohio and Illinois and so forth.
She got boat raced in her own state.
Yeah, that didn't help.
I mean, Trump has a stranglehold on the Republican Party. Most Republicans are afraid to publicly criticize him on anything.
Right.
It's inevitable. I mean, I guess we'll play along with the charade. But, okay, now you've got Biden, Trump, too.
Yes.
The president has kept most of his support around him, obviously, but there were some fringe supporters who balloted uncommitted as a protest to what's happening in the Middle East. What are your thoughts on that? And what about President Biden's ability to seal the deal with so many questions?
So, number one, President Biden's in serious trouble this fall. Number two, I'm of the opinion that 95 to 97% of the vote is pretty much etched in stone and won't change, which leads me to number three. The people who are literally going to decide this election, I'm talking like 50,000 to 100,000 in a few states. We're talking about people who either A, voted for Biden under what I would think was a false bill of goods, or B, if you have lower Democratic intensity in areas like, say, college campuses or inner cities, you know, 1,000 votes here, 1,000 votes there, that could theoretically affect the results in Arizona and Georgia.
Yeah, but isn't this really a case of pro and anti-President Trump?
Very much.
President Biden carried a lot of areas because Republicans, specifically Republican women, did not want Donald Trump.
Correct.
And going into this election now, he's got all these questions about his age and whether or not he would even finish another term. This is a case of, do we want more Trump or not?
And the easiest job Donald Trump has is actually reminiscent of what Edwin Edwards did in 1983, which was remind people of the quote-unquote good times when he was previously a chief executive. That's all Donald Trump has to do.
Well, look, I don't want to hog the segment talking about that because we're going to have a lot of time. Okay, special session just ended.
Back here to Baton Rouge.
Regular session's on the way. Grade for the crime session and thoughts on the upcoming regular.
Slam dunk for Governor Landry. Basically everything he wanted got passed. The most important thing was getting, at least from the standpoint of Republicans, getting concealed carry passed. But by the way, one of the things that does not get mentioned that should be, when you don't have a Democratic governor who's exerting pressure on members of his own party, you had 6 mainly rural Democrats who actually voted for this concealed carry bill. So it was technically a bipartisan effort. But going to regular session, what I see happening is this. There's obviously going to be some Republican agenda items that'll be on the list. But more importantly, bills that Governor Edwards vetoed and the Republicans wanted, one that immediately comes to mind is the annual canvass that they want to do with the Secretary of State. Those kinds of bills are going to get basically slam dunked through the legislature this time because you're not going to have any visible opposition, or excuse me, not visible enough to be, 53 representatives or 20 senators.
What would be his biggest win in this session on the other side of it? Predict the future.
In terms of Governor Landry?
Yes.
If, let's pretend, I think the thing that is starting to bubble up now is the Constitutional Convention.
Oh, man, I know about that.
Now, that has a good and a bad side to it. The bad
You think?
Yeah. The bad side, and this is getting into the risky aspects of it, let's say they start trying to tinker with things like the homestead exemption and or other tax exemptions, because the dirty little secret is all these changes that they're contemplating still have to be voted on by the general public.
Look, once we've gone through the process, I'll get you back here to talk. That is a segment on its own.
Yes.
All right, thank you, John. Coming up, we'll be talking about what's happening at Breck, but there's a community program going on right now that's helping kids in District 10, helping kids not only learn but communicate and be more productive. It's Hands on Our Children in District 10. You can see the details there at the Leo S. Butler Center.